Welcome to Slacker Moto Radio with Brad and Addison. Based out of the Pacific Northwest, we're talking motorcycles and the motorcycle community, and we're excited to have this hour with you. Here we go. Welcome back, Slackers. Brad, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Addison. I get to see you while we're recording this time. Nobody else will get to see this probably, but it's pretty awesome, actually. Pretty excited. How are you doing?
I hear you on this. Like, obviously, no one will know if you didn't say anything, but since you did, we've got video now, and unfortunately, neither of us are set up for it, so I don't think we're going to show it because it looks like you've got Kleenex behind you, and I've got some ridiculous flowery box behind me that I'm not proud of. So we're going to leave those be. But for our reactions to each other and ability to chime in and have a better cadence, at least a more real cadence, I think this is going to be an awesome advancement in what we've been doing, really, since we thought a 1 month delay from COVID was all it was going to be, and here we are a year later. So we're at least moving forward a little. We've talked about other improvements that we're coming towards and working towards. But yeah, I'm good. It's been busy. I mean, we're a week late on this. Apologize. We're going to move our release date, not date, but our release day of the week a little bit. And I realized that now coming out Sunday nights, we could have just done that last week. But why when we could do a total delay of everything and throw everyone off? So we'll call that the reason.
Okay, it was my fault, but
well, between the two of us, man, work, home, motorcycles, it's been busy. I guess, yeah, as a news update, I know we've talked about the DR. Got some snow time on the DR. That was a fun adventure. I don't know, fun might be the wrong description, but that was an adventure.
Okay, yeah. I was surprised, you were telling me that you wanted to do this. It was on your bucket list. I'm out driving around. I see motorcycles on the roadway, obviously, out there playing. And so I know I sent you a picture of this, and this is when the snow there was a little bit on the ground, fairly packed, but not too bad. And you decided to go out once there was a lot more snow. So no longer can you actually go ride in it. You're going to go try to plow it with your bike. I was completely confused by your logic in that, but I was excited to see that you went out and that you were okay after your slip and slide.
Yeah, we got. I mean, more snow than expected, being Northwest, I guess. But I know there's a lot of people get a lot more snow than we did. But yeah, we're it was up past the front axle on a 21-inch tire, so there was a good amount of snow that I was plowing through. To your point, but yeah, ripped up and down the road a little. Up and down's the wrong terminology. Ripped down the road a little ways, and then had a good slip and slide spill, and decided that there was just a lot more of that ahead of me if I kept going. So ripped it back around and shot, rooster-tailed snow all the way home and pissed off my entire neighborhood at roughly 3/4 throttle the entire way. And it was like muddy sand. I did it, done it. Life is good.
Well, they can't complain too much. They parked all of their cars halfway out their driveways, so there was no road. So, I mean, what do they expect? You got to take the motorcycle if you're going to go somewhere. And it didn't work out.
Yep, that was the deceptive amount of snow that we got. It didn't look too bad, but a lot of people were high-centered in there. Even their, SUVs and whatnot. The cars that weren't necessarily small, they were high-centering and getting stuck all over our neighborhood. But oh well, that was fun. Good experience. Good chance to try something new and get a little off-road chops with the DR. That being said, also learned a lot about throttle. I guess it's not throttle sticking, but how much it wanted to rev out and not calm down. The idles wanted to stick pretty hard, but obviously the throttle was releasing and coming back, so it wasn't a throttle stick issue. It was more of a air-fuel ratio issue.
Interesting.
Got a chance to kind of really learn a little bit more of that after having repaired and done the clutch and all the things that needed to be done. Finally kick it over and see what's going on with that. So that was good, but yeah, I spent last week really dialing it in. Took the carb off completely, 100% cleaned everything, replaced all the O-rings with Viton, Got it all cleaned up and buttoned up, and fired it up really yesterday, and
Okay.
runs great. Returns back to idle like it should. I've got compression braking again. Idles. I mean, it sat out front and idled while I tweaked the idle air screw. I mean, it
Yeah.
sat there. Granted, it died a few times when I got too when I choked it out too much and or allowed too much air in, but that's part of the tweaking when you find your range, and then you got to find the sweet spot in the middle where you get the most control on the idle blip or the throttle blip. So yeah, I think it's pretty dialed in. Took it for a run afterwards, and it felt like a motorcycle again, not like an automatic vehicle that'll let me coast at full speed down a hill. So that was nice to release the throttle and feel the bike slow down instead of relying on brakes that are ancient.
No, no, that's good. I'm glad that you had spent some more time. I know that was one of the things I was questioning, you working on the carburetor if it didn't need it. But once I mean, based on what you've described on your more recent rides, it was definitely pointing to something going on with the carburetor as opposed to all the other things that you were tracking down. So good to hear that you went through good logic and sequence of events for diagnosing and solving some of the issues that you had noticed. So that's good to hear that that bike is closer. If not, is it ready to start hitting a trail? Is that what you're saying?
So I'm pretty confident at this point, at least for local rides where it wouldn't be a nuisance or a difficult experience to have somebody come grab me if there is more problems. But I'm confident to go out and test it now, beyond just local streets where I could easily get it home on my own power, or walk home and get the truck kind of a thing. I'm willing to go a bit further now, so that's the next step. Next clear day. I shouldn't even say clear because I'm not that concerned with this bike. It's not pristine. Next day that I have free time, happy to jump out and give it a shot. Yeah, hit some of the local trails, get a few miles further out, and start trusting it. I mean, even after went for a quick ride with the chicken hawk on the chicken wing, and we ended up going probably about 20-25 miles round trip on the bike. Now at idle, that's kind of why I decided to go completely into the carburetor, because at idle at a stoplight, it wanted to die on me. It wanted to stall out. It was stumbling a little bit. Things just weren't right, clearly. So needed a little bit more work, and that was the incentive to pull the carburetor out completely and do a full cleanup, O-ring replacement. I mean, a lot of the O-rings I replaced looked okay, but I've got Viton O-rings, so let's put the good ones in that are a little more ethanol friendly, knowing that I won't always be somewhere where I can get ethanol free fuel.
Sure.
So all in all, I'm happy with it. I think I'm looking forward to more adventure rides and get it out. I know there's a group of our friends going out this weekend. I shouldn't say obviously, but unfortunately, not going to work for me with everything going on at home. But I may get a chance nonetheless this weekend to take it out and go for a ride in my local dirt roads and fire trails.
No, that'd be awesome. I know I'd heard about the one that's coming up April timeframe, but wasn't aware of this weekend's. But that'd be good. Glad to hear that you've got a new bike. I mean, what do you think about the center of gravity and its height on that new bike? I mean, it's probably significantly different than most of your other bikes that you've ridden. Have you had any hesitations with it, or what do you think about it so far?
I mean, it doesn't feel too different than the dirt bike with regards to the CG. It's definitely a little heavier than my 360, but it's not worlds different by any means. Obviously, it is worlds different from the street triple, and
Sure.
road confidence is. I mean, cornering on it just doesn't feel right compared to the triple that's made to basically be a track ready street bike. This thing feels like it's going to wash out. That, and I don't trust the tires. They're 9 years old. Fairly fresh amount of rubber on them. They didn't have a lot of use prior to me buying it, but just 9-year old tires or something. I'm not necessarily confident pushing hard anyway. Being tube type, I'll make sure we've got enough air in them and still go out and use them. But I definitely wouldn't do a trip on them or anything that really required a more stable amount of reliability. So there's things that need to be tweaked and resolved. I think I could do a brake flush and it wouldn't hurt. Little things like that aren't terrible, that are plenty good for testing and running and local around town stuff. But I'll definitely want to do before going on a multi-day adventure out to Central Oregon or something to that effect.
Sure, sure. No, that's awesome. Good to hear that you made some good headwind on that. Probably means that you didn't make much for progress on some of your other projects. Any news on those?
So the JT1 got the front end basically all done, painted, ready to go. The frames painted, ready to go. Yeah, the JT1 had a bit of progress with regards to part prep, cleanup, and things like that after having already done the suspension. So that's ready to go. On to the next step, we got to get a few parts. So there's an order for new old stock from Partzilla sitting in the basket, waiting to pull the trigger on the last few items just to clean it up right. But
Oh, let me know when you get ready to order. I need a couple things. So
yeah, I know you're always looking for support in the free shipping, so we'll go that route. And then yeah, I didn't get a lot done on the GL. There's things that I've done for aesthetics and whatnot, just in when I'm painting and working on things for the JT1, but nothing that no significant progress. I've been working on this bike too much.
yeah, okay. Oh, that's good. That's good. So, out of curiosity, I know that you took the opportunity to watch the Harley Davidson Pan America reveal. What did you think? I didn't get a chance to log in, but it sounds like you were kind of excited the first time you started talking about it.
So it was different. The whole experience was, I mean, the first portion of it was a very highly produced commercial.
Okay.
I believe that Jason Momoa, we talked about him a couple weeks back, just being kind of the spokesman or the poster child for this Pan America from a celebrity standpoint. But I think he had something to do with directing and helping with his video, obviously besides being in it. And
Yeah,
it
but I
was a
mean
cool
that had
video.
already been released at one point. Like they'd already shown clips of it. So was it a longer version, or did they just go, "Hey, look, this is new"? I mean, how did they present it?
So it started with that video, and it was basically like I don't know the total time elapse of it, but a short film. It went for a lot longer than a commercial or anything you'd see pop onto TV. It was a few minutes where it
Okay.
continued to show different clips of the bike, and with a monologue from Jason Momoa, the whole thing. It was basically a short film, but in an advertising film way, not like a documentary or didn't get a lot of information. It was just like, look how cool this bike is. Let's say really cool words with my deep voice and let's show it off. Right. Which is cool. I mean, the bike is capable of doing pretty amazing things. Arguably, most bikes are if you're willing to do that. I've seen people do crazy stuff with, full baggers. I mean, the bagger race is a great example, right? You can do whatever you want on any bike if you're good enough to ride them that way. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the most capable of bikes, but it was cool video, cool things. And then they really kind of went into just a walkthrough of the history of Harley and why the Pan America isn't such a deviation. It felt very much like, guys, we're doing something different, and we want people that want something different to be excited with the movie. And then, so that our core audience doesn't get upset by this, let's explain why this is still our core audience, right? Why this is still our core competency. And it was good. I mean, it did make me think. And so, with regards to an advertising video, I thought it was really good. It talks about Harley, right, originally being the horse replacement. So it was dirt roads and Pan American travel on rough roads and gravel and all of this. And that was what the Harley was born as, right? I mean, the reason that Harley has a good flat track racing heritage is because they're fine on groomed dirt. In fact,
Mhm.
they're very good. I've seen a lot of people on full, fat bobs and sportsters and guys on that are basically bone stock doing very well on dirt roads and gravel roads and things like that. So it's not like the bike can't do it anyway. Um, but it was interesting and really didn't have a ton of big information though. It was only a half hour of the hour allotted. and it was kind of just a lot of hype and a little design reasoning why it looks the way it does, why it's not such a deviation from Harley's core competency, and a couple of little, I shouldn't say gimmicky items because I think they'll be used more. They're doing not adaptive suspension because we already have that. They are using that, but they're actually doing a variable suspension where when you set your ride mode, it'll actually adjust suspension height accordingly, which was
Okay.
kind of cool. So you can come to, or based on speed, it'll adjust. If you come to a stop, the bike will actually lower if you put it in neutral at a stop, or I don't know they didn't really go over the specifics of the mechanism, so now I'm just making stuff up. But
Mm.
when you come to a stop, they showed that, right? It's a taller bike than Harley usually is. So when you come to a stop, it actually lowers so you can put your feet on the ground and feel more stable when holding it up. And I don't think, at least according to Harley, nobody's done that before on a bike factory. And I think that's a cool technology that I imagine we'll see more of. I think that
Yeah,
makes
maybe. I
adventure
guess it
bikes more
depends on
accessible.
how it acts. Wait, so I'm still stuck on that because if you're changing your suspension while riding, I mean, one of the things that most people appreciate is that you understand and you have a feeling for how the bike is going to behave. When you've got the suspension changing as you ride, I mean, that has to be very finely tuned so it's not perceptible and you're not making decisions and motions that could actually put yourself in harm's way. Like, so if you decide you're at a stop and it lowers and then you gun it and then all of a sudden it's trying to pick up at the same time as you're going, like how does that feel? How does that change your riding behavior? And are there any concerns with that? I'm not saying that it's not a cool feature, but just how does that affect your riding experience and comfort with the bike? Anyway, I know that we don't have any. We're not on the bike, we can't tell, but I'm interested to see how that plays out. Sorry.
No, you're good. And I agree. I think that was kind of when I started trying to explain what my brain thinks it does may not be reality. So that's where we got to get on it. We have to understand that a little bit better. There's a handful of things that that it does, the bike does that really help. Make it a more accessible, a more Harley Davidson bike. It didn't seem super loud. It does have that going for it for the market, but I think more than this video, it was kind of their release time. As of the release of this video, suddenly our website will now have all the information you need, which is cool. That part of it I think is cool because you're talking 500 and change pounds wet. You're talking 150 horsepower, 100 foot-pounds of torque. Now I'm plus or minus one or two on all of these. I'm spitballing here without the data sheet in front of me, but it's right at 150 and right around I think it's 98 foot-pounds of torque. And so it's a competent bike in the market. And the problem is, and I don't know if it's a problem because if you're competing with if you're competing with BMW and KTM and these guys, a $17,000 price tag, 17 plus, really is kind of what the market goes for on the higher end adventure bikes. So
Right,
if
but
that's
it's
really
still,
where they're
from what
trying to
I
play,
understand, on the low end of what a BMW would cost you. So they're priced at the same point as most KTM's and their direct competitors. And then BMW is actually more expensive. So I think that was a smart move on Harley's point to put themselves with the pack and not try to go for the premium so that way you can get the volume. You can get in on all of those sales. And if it turns out to be something phenomenal that just takes the market by storm, that price can go up to reduce the demand, right? You play the supply and demand, and they'll do well with it. But starting off at a good price point, I think was a very smart decision on their part.
I agree. And I feel that because of that price point, they, at least with pre sales, I don't see it lasting long. I think for the annual production for year one, you're not going to see any available just sitting on a showroom. I think they're all going to go and be sold before they show up. Because there is some hype around it, and there's excitement because it is, adventure market's been the big market for years, and this is a newcomer kind of, and just a different deviation from what we're used to seeing. However, twins are normal, and a lot of it really just because of the name Harley is it different, right? That's kind of The hard part for me to wrap my head around is it's a Harley Davidson adventure bike. Yeah, okay, that's different. Twins, a twin power plant, that's pretty common in the adventure world. Singles are common, triples, four cylinder, right? These are all somewhat common. Whatever you want, you can get. A lot of the other stuff that it's doing and that it has really isn't that, it's all par for the adventure bike course. And I was surprised to see that the weight was manageable. Under 600 pounds is not a bad number. It's not, an exceptional KTM super high performance Baja number, but it's not a bad number. It's not something anybody's going to laugh at. It's not a 700-pound Harley trying to be off road. It's also, it's got everything it needs to check the boxes. 150 horses is good. That's right there where it should be for about that price point, that style of bike, that size of bike. 100 foot-pounds of torque, that's not anything to laugh at. Some do better, some do worse. That's right there. And, it's all kind of in the range of what it should be. And I think
Right.
that's
They
what was...
even put in the chain drive, so they limited their losses as well as giving it the off-road cadence as opposed to most Harleys that are belt-driven, right? So I mean, they
Yep.
paid attention and did it per what the customer and the audience is actually looking for in that aspect. I thought that was pretty good.
I think it's I think it's a competent inclusion to the market. I think it'll show up, and I think it, at the very least, based on paper, will be fine. And yet to be seen whether it's going to be exceptional or whether it's just going to float in that meh market, right? Part of the market. I don't know. The price point tells me, if I'm paying $17,500 for a bike, I expect it to be in the good side of the range. I think it needs to be not just cool, different, and unique for the adventure market, but something that can compete and be something you'd want to ride every day, not just have in your garage to show off. So that's the one caveat I see. But there was a lot of jokes about the $30,000 Harley adventure bike, and it's not that either. It's not the premium price tag we're used to seeing on on a live wire or on any other new Harley they come out that seems to be, let's take what everybody else is charging and throw $5,000 on top because it's a Harley. And they didn't do that. So I think it's going to do fairly well.
Yeah, like I said, things can come at a premium once you've gotten your feet wet and people can see what it does. If it takes the market by storm and it becomes the go-to and your demand is high, then you can bump up the prices. But until then, I think it's good that they're they need to get it out there. They need to have people start seeing it on the road, seeing it off road, right? Before they're going to have people going, man, that Harley actually did pretty good. I'll at least go, ride one, check it out, and then you end up in a dealership, and at least some of the ones that we have around here, I mean, actually have a really good environment, so they might do decent. Just depends how it goes.
Yeah, that's my big push now with this. Is I think we need to put some seat time down and see what it feels like, even if it's just around town. I got no, I'd love to see it off road. I know, certain manufacturers are really good about demoing and having moments and places to go off road. That might be quite the deviation for a Harley dealer, is to let someone go tear down a dirt road on their brand new bike. So, I don't know about that, but we'll definitely talk to our local guys, see what we can do to get some seat time and have a better understanding of of what it actually feels like to ride. That's always been my thing with bikes is, you can look at what it's got on paper and it gives you a good baseline, good foundation to take when you go feel how the bike really feels seat of the pants. Because sometimes it doesn't matter. I've seen a lot of quote unquote underpowered bikes that when you ride feel just as fun as some of the fast guys. So, it's all dependent on what it feels like when you get on the bike and twist that throttle.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. I'd like to get out there. We'll just have to get that going. I know we've got some things in the works, and that'll be coming up as things start opening up, start getting a little bit warmer, drier weather. Definitely, definitely.
Now, speaking of Harley, I don't know if you saw this, but Eagle Rider is no longer the Harley-specific rental. Not that they ever were. You could get BMWs and other premium bike rentals from Eagle Rider. But they've now picked up a partnership directly with Zero. So you can test ride your electric motorcycle before you buy it for a long, extended period of time.
Yeah, no, I did see that. We chatted, I know we sent this article back and forth a little bit. I know that they're now, Eagle Rider is now global with a dozen distribution locations. I'm trying to process how that means global, but anyway, so Eagle Rider, I think is we've talked to a couple of them at the One Moto show, and others seem like a great company that's providing at least some avenue for people to rent out their own bikes, as well as other manufacturers being able to get involved with that as well. Um, I it does come as a premium, but there was some benefit. I know that my dad was looking at them for a while, potentially to be able to do that, try out some bikes before he made a purchase. But yeah, I think they give you a couple days of rides for free. I think your birthday you get a day. I mean, I'm sure that there's more cost associated to it than that, but seems to be a model that people are interested in. I mean, what's the other one that is common? You got Eagle Rider, and then do you remember what the other one is?
I mean, there's a hand. So Eagle Riders, it's a rental company, right? It's your Hertz or National.
That's fair.
But you've also got a handful of ride share type motorcycle rentals. I know we spoke with them as well at the one show. But there's a couple out there, and you can basically go and look and put your own bike available for rental at whatever fee you want, and they'll basically skim, whatever 20% or whatever it is off the top, as kind of your advertising site or your central hub to be able to do that and make a little cash with your bike. Um,
Mhm.
but the one thing I really found interesting with the Zero partnership is that it's already baked into the deal that up to a certain number of days or certain price point, you will actually get that off of your purchase price if you buy the same model that you rented. So if you decide you want to try the top of the line Zero and you rent it for 3 days, you actually can bring that receipt showing you just rented it to your Zero dealer, and they'll take that price tag off whatever you negotiate, which I think is a
Really?
very interesting model. So now, not only are you testing the bike, but if you're really serious about testing it to buy it, there's no risk.
No, that is interesting. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into the electric bike discussion, but curious to see how that plays out. That as far as continuing to provide something that is of value and that people want to ride. I mean, if I'm traveling around the country, it is my bike that I'm going to grab if I'm wanting to go and do some touring in another part of the U.S. Let's say, is that is Zero going to provide the best means of transportation? I now have to worry about charging stations and everything else, as opposed to gas. I mean, I, I, I only see the benefit in I'm going to rent a bike to see if I like it around in my area. And to that point, I can go to a Zero dealership and I can just test ride it and it doesn't cost me anything. I'm trying to see how that works out for
So I've had some conversations. Our local Zero manufacturer, not manufacturer, our local Zero dealer is associated with Moto down Portland, and I've had some conversations with guys there, and I think that's the gap right now with people that love the bike, because it basically, I mean, granted, any salesman's going to say that's about most any bike, but anybody that sits on it and rides it loves it. But a lot of those people aren't taking one home. And I think that's the big gap is you can go rent a Zero, or not rent, sorry, you can go test ride a Zero for an hour, or whatever, right? Locally through Portland, you can run it around town and feel how cool it is and that instant torque and all those benefits of the electric bike, and then drop it off and they'll charge it up, and you got your test ride and you saw, hey, around town this is excellent. But I don't live in town, and so for me, I would have that. That's I think I would feel just like this salesman was explaining that I would ride it around town and think it's awesome. But does that mean it's going to work for me when I'm got a 30-mile commute basically anywhere outside of my local community? And that's what you don't know when you just test ride it for an hour around the dealership downtown Portland. If you rent it for a couple of days, you can get that feel of, hey, is this going to work for my day to day? Is this actually going to have enough charge for me to go do my commute, to stop at store X, Y, or Z on the way home and still get home? Is this going to, be a problem in the heat of the summer when not just when it just came out of an AC room and it's coming back in an hour, but if I'm writing for a full day or whatever I want to do, for that rental experience. So I think that's really the gap that Zero is trying to close. Is the gap between a short ride is always awesome, but will it work for what I really do? And so I think it's a really good idea, but I hear what you're saying that I don't know. I would be very curious as this moves forward and as it's more common for people to have access to Zeros at Eagle Rider to rent, whether sales actually increase. Because I agree that a lot of people aren't necessarily renting a bike in a local neighborhood. But if you knew you were really seriously looking at one, but still had that big question mark, why wouldn't you, right? You can get 3 free days, basically, of use of that bike prior to pulling the trigger at the dealership.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. I just time will tell how this actually benefits them. I have a feeling that it's more of just getting their name out and people seeing it, not so much actually being able to rent it out. It's great that I think that they're able to remove some of that sticker price upon purchase, but yeah, as far as like me traveling to another area of the country and then I'm going to rent a bike. I mean, I'm the last thing I want to worry about is trying to find all of the, like I said, all of the charging stations that are going to allow me to actually enjoy it for 2 days if I have it. So I'm just going to get a regular bike. I can find gas stations anywhere, right? So yeah, let's just. It'd be interesting here in the next 6 months to have a conversation with those dealerships and see how many people are actually taking advantage of it. Maybe even get on with Eagle Rider and talk to them about it.
I think that's interesting, and I hear what you're saying. That's kind of been, as far as I understood, the core of Eagle Rider was travel rentals, right? You're somewhere and you don't want a car, you want a bike because that's what you're doing. And I agree that Zero doesn't really fit in that core market for Eagle Rider, but I think Eagle Rider may fit in the core next step for Zero. So hopefully they both benefit. But I agree, we'll have to touch back on this one later, see what effect, especially in our local area, if it made any difference at all. If they're seeing people come in with the receipt from a rental before they're buying their Zeros, or whether the dealership says, "Hey, this really hasn't done anything at all. We're selling just as many, and nobody seems to really be using that benefit." So, nonetheless, at least they made the news, so they got a little news out of it.
Publicity, yeah.
Um, the other thing I thought was interesting is you brought it up the other day, is the new Rebel 1100.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually didn't think it looked too bad. I mean, for what it was, I think of the Rebel, and it's definitely the small bike, the beginner's bike, the 250 and such that has been around for quite a while. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them for people getting on a bike and wanting to start learning how to ride. And I know that they have them as well for or at least I believe they have them for some of the motorcycle training classes in the Northwest. But it looked like it had a good fair amount of technology, and it wasn't just a cheap, here, let's go into market with a bigger bike. I mean, they actually put a little bit of time into it, and I didn't think it looked too bad. I mean, it's not a Harley, but at the same time, it's going to cost a lot less, right? Maybe a good alternative.
Well, that was kind of the discussion point on what you were sharing out earlier in the week that I thought was really interesting. Is basically that was the point of at least this review, was that 1100 is Sportster competition, as it's meant to come in and take the Harley into, in their opinion, really, that it was going to be the next Sportster. Now, I did a little bit more research on kind of some of the background of this, and you can get a fully optioned Sportster 1200. No, I shouldn't say fully optioned, because you can get really nice trim packages from Harley that are not necessarily directly available as a package from Honda. But you
Right.
can get a 1200 Sportster for the same price point, same sticker price as the Rebel 1100. So you're not really getting any lower price. But the main point, I think, of the article and of what you're saying is that, Honda's got that technology, right? You can get the automatic transmission. I guess shouldn't say necessarily automatic. It's still a push button shift, but you can get all this technology that if you're not necessarily looking for, the classic motorcycle feel, if you're not looking for, what a typical motorcycle is, but you want a cruiser and you want to ride motorcycles, and maybe you're a little weary of having to shift, and you're just learning, but you want a big bike and you don't want to jump into the 175 scooter market because you don't want to learn everything without a clutch at that point. You can get into the Rebel and really get into that cruiser market with all of that new technology, and that's what you get, I guess, for that price point. Is you're not going to get a Sportster with the electronic options there at the same price point. But you're still, if you want bags or a rear seat or any of the things that are pretty common for a bike of that size, it is on top of that fee even for the Rebel.
Right. And one thing that I thought was interesting about it, that may be attributing to it, and this may no longer be the case, but Harley Davidson doesn't really, or hasn't generally had a good reputation for reliability. But you think of Honda, and they do, right? So if you're going to put apples to apples, you've got that going for you, that people think of Honda and they might associate that with reliability. And then the other thing that comes to mind is I'm seeing some articles that the Sportster might be dying, like that it's going away. Now, I can't confirm this, but at the same point, I know that there's a lot of patents going out for maybe something new. Maybe it's a new Sportster, but if something drastic comes out, it might actually increase the overall price of that bike, and the Honda would be at a good point in comparison to that, if that were true.
I agree with you on that. I think, to give Indian some credit, I know that people are kind of on both sides of this fight with Indian and Harley, but, I think the Scout is pretty pretty notorious now, pretty unanimously the better of the small entry cruisers. I think if you ask around or do a poll with really any group of people with any substance, you're going to find that the Scout is the preferred bike. And so, it makes sense that Harley would want to bring the sports up to this the new fight, right? Someone new came in and is kind of doing really well. I know that if you talk about the bigger bikes, it's very split, if not still more lean towards the Harley side of things. But when you're talking the Scout versus the Sportster, I think, obviously there's quite a following on those Scouts, both for ease of ride and higher RPMs, and it does just a little bit more that you'd expect from a smaller bike like that than the Sportster. But to that point, the Sportster is a lot less expensive because you have so much legacy in it that, your price per bike, your variable costs are so much lower. So, they're doing pretty well with that, but I could see that being the case, especially now Honda's coming in the game. And when you look at the price point of a Scout versus the Rebel 1100, it is pretty, I don't know if staggering is the right word, but there's a gap. You can definitely get the Rebel a lot less expensive than a similarly optioned Scout.
Right, right. And I know that we've already moved on from this topic, but it reminded me, and this is just a question for you. Do you consider the new Pan America to be competition with the FTR? And if so, how does it compare? You're shaking your head.
I don't believe no, as factory release, it is not. I think it is a different segment. It is a different attempt into the market. The FTR. So Indian came out with the FTR to kind of go at that Street Fighter midweight. Mid to large weight tracker. That's really what it is, right? It's supposed to be their.
But definitely towards the adventure side of the market, though, as well. You can spec it either way, but they have packages for that.
Even the most adventure packet or adventure, let me clarify, adventure touring package is pretty limited on the FTR compared. Harley definitely clearly made it really clear in their video that this is not a deviation from their touring, right? Harley's always been known as cross-country touring. This is just more of the dirt road side of it. So it is intended to be able to haul, two large, and you can get Harley factory aluminum side bags, you can get Harley factory soft bags, you can get whatever you want already optioned out on that Pan America, but it's intended to be a distance touring bike that does well off-road. It's not necessarily intended to be a flat track bike that does well on-road. And I think that's more the FTR plan. It's a flat tracker that you can show up at a bar or show up at your buddy's house and everybody wants to drool over because it's a cool flat tracker, but on road. You can spec it out and get it closer to that adventure bike, but I think they'll meet in the middle. I'm sure if you take everything off of the Pan America and want it just to be a rip around town bike, and if you put everything adventure touring you could on the FTR, at least factory wise, they're going to be in a pretty similar segment, but that's not the core market for either of them. However, to more, I guess, go a little further into your question, I do believe that same power plant, frame, and probably roughly just that because they'll adjust the suspension and whatnot for it. I think that same base core bike will become an FTR fighter. I think they're going to do something with it that will make it more of a tracker styling, whether it be just plastic side covers and a different suspension setup with less aggressive tires. It wouldn't take much. I've seen some, granted it's just Photoshop type edits and designs at this point, but I've seen some that look very tracker-like. So I don't think it'll take much to get there, and I would not be surprised if Harley already had that in their sights.
Nor would I be surprised if Indian comes out with something that bumps it up on their side as well.
I would be willing to bet Indian will see what happens first. Wait till after the first year excitement goes and see what happens on year 2 before they do anything.
Yeah, I think they'll just sell the capabilities of the bike and that you can set it up for what most people would actually probably be using the bike for, which is just dirt roads. I know that in the video they're showing the Pan America jumping and other things. I don't anticipate most people are going to do that, but they could, I guess. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I'd anticipate that the most, all of your let's call them influencers, because I think that's the right term in today's world, right? Your people that are gonna buy the bike, early adopters that are actually going to ride the bikes, are going to use them pretty aggressively. I think there's a lot of excitement from guys that ride big scramblers, the Scrambler 1200 off road hard in a race standpoint, that are really looking at the Harley so that they can get it and see what it can do in real life. So I think we'll see a lot of people beating on the Pan America, but I agree that because the loudest voices are the ones riding it hard, I think the vast majority of the voices are either not going to ride it or just go around town on it. I agree that I don't think it's going to be its core use if you took every sale, but I do think we'll see a lot of videos of people thrashing them pretty good.
Oh, I can only imagine, but just going back to what people think they need versus
Yep.
what they really need.
Man, so I had a chance, I guess, going back. We've jumped back and forth between the Pan America and this Rebel discussion, but yeah, I had a chance to go to our ProCal's got a new Rebel 1100 on their showroom. At least they did last weekend.
Really?
I got a chance to go look at it and sit on it and get a good look. I gotta say, as a I don't know, it's not a core motorcyclist or whatever you want to call it. The clutchless transmission is not my thing. I have no interest in that. I can see why it would be beneficial for new riders or people that, if you would rather have the convenience and ease of not having to pull the clutch and shift and you just want to press the button on the handlebar, that's cool. I get it, but it's not my thing. I would prefer a more typical transmission on my bike just because I do like, same with the cars. I like a manual transmission.
I completely agree, but there is a segment for it trying to get people in there that aren't comfortable with that, being able to just push a button. All you got to just push a button. Just got to push a button. You can focus on the road. You don't have to worry about your legs. You can be comfortable. You can set up your pegs however you want. I can imagine how they'll sell it, but I agree that would not be the first thing that I would want, right? I am crying every night because there are less and less new cars being manufactured that have manual transmissions, right? There's going to be a day where I can't even buy one, I imagine.
Yeah, I think that's not too far from where we're at. I've said it before, and I've seen it written by others that there are children born today that will never even know how to drive a car because by the time they turn 16, they'll be in an affluent enough household that it already has fully automated vehicles. So there are people born that'll never even know how to drive if they don't want to, right? And that's crazy to me. But nonetheless, we don't need to dive down that rabbit hole in today's discussion. the sake of time. But I will say that the new the new Rebel wasn't bad. The fit and finish was pretty good. It definitely wasn't Harley or Indian standard.
Did you
It's a
swing your
Honda.
leg over it?
Oh, we did. Yeah, I threw a leg on, sat on it. It's comfortable. But that was kind of where my comment of if you really want anything you're looking for on a bigger, I shouldn't even say bigger, but let's say an entry level cruiser like that, um, you don't get a lot. It's got a single seat, a bare fender. That $10,000 price tag is what it is. And if you want to have bags, if you want to go, have a seat for a passenger, if you want to do anything else with the bike, you're going to have to pay a little extra for that. But it is, it is a Honda. Therefore, they're going to have all those accessories. It's going to be accessible. It's going to be
Yeah.
something you can get for it.
No, I can imagine. It'd be interesting. Did it seem like anybody else had been interested? Did you quiz the salesman to see what he? I mean, obviously they want to sell the bike, but did it seem like he even cared about the bike, or was it a highlight for him?
Yeah, they had just gotten it. It was still sitting in the doorway, pretty much. I mean, it was pushed a little bit forward to the doorway. They hadn't even put it with the Hondas yet. It was just sitting kind of where they would have taken delivery on it. Opened up and sat there. And I won't name names for the sake of ruining anybody's career, but there was very little information known about this bike. Yeah, it's new. We just got it. It was about as much as I could get at anybody, just by
Hey,
reading
sometimes
the
I can
information.
appreciate that. Just to say, I appreciate that somebody didn't come over there and try to BS you through the whole thing. That they knew everything and that it had a turbo and point to an air plenum or something crazy like that, right? So, I mean, okay, I can appreciate that. Thank you for being honest.
Yeah, but didn't get a ton of information. Didn't seem like something they were pushing. They had a 2021 Honda Fury in the showroom, which, quite frankly, I haven't seen a new Fury in a showroom in a long time. We've got a good buddy that rides a Fury and rides the crap out of a Fury, so I've seen them plenty of times. But yeah, they were much more excited to try to show that off than the brand new technology Rebel 1100. So it wasn't definitely, at least wasn't yet a highlight that anybody's told them to push, or they don't have much information or haven't done the research on yet. But they had just gotten it. In fairness, it's not like they'd had it for a week and had any trainings on it or anything like that. Nor it didn't look like anybody rode it. Didn't look like it had oil, and it looked like it literally just got dropped off. Some of the case covers, the little plastic liner to protect things, is still on some of it. It didn't look like there was much done, so nobody's been able to
So
even get
did
on it yet.
you while you were there, because you haven't described why you were even there, have you fulfilled the prophecy of buying two bikes already within the first 2 months of this year?
No, ProCal once a year does a shirt swap, so I pick
Sure.
my oldest, ugliest shirt, swap it for a new one.
That's all you were doing. Was Chicken Hawk with you?
Yeah.
Okay, now I thought that there was a bike that he was interested in buying, though.
Now that's not at this dealership, but there was a lot of drooling over the Versus 1000.
Okay, so is he going to be buying the Versus 1000?
I I don't know.
I
I
thought that
won't
he
get into
bought
this
the
yet.
chicken wing and the chicken hawk was going to be happy, was going to be content. It was everything he
Well, no
needed.
one. I shouldn't say that. There are people better than I that are very content with what they have, but we always want something different, better, newer, right? There's always something cooler to have, and I shouldn't say want. I mean, maybe I should. Want is the right word. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to do it or we need it, but we always want something cooler. There's always something cooler out there. So,
Well, he's
I
a
think that's
postal
where he's at.
worker. He's going to get a brand new postal van, right? That's a whole new thing. They just signed a contract for some crazy looking cars themed postal vans, right? So he'll be getting a new one of those. Won't that appease that newness factor he's looking for?
I have no idea what you're talking about at this point. That's news to me. I have not been as good about keeping up with your side podcast that is Postal Workers News R Us. But
Hey, Chicken Hawk's my number one fan.
no, I think he'll get something different. But I don't know, right? With what's going on and what he uses a bike for, I think everybody should get what they want if they can, and it doesn't have a negative effect on their lives. But I don't know that that's the bike necessarily that checks the box. It goes back to your comment, right? And we hear it from Ryan all the time, but what are you actually going to do with a bike, right? Are you getting the bike you actually are going to use? Or are you getting the bike that you think you want but will never actually use? And I think that's some of that with this, that he was able to get on one on a demo day. He loves it and can't seem to shake it from his brain. But I don't know that it's really the bike that's going to check off everyday box or his annual box of what he's using it for. I think.
Right. Well, yeah, I loved riding the MT-09 around too, but that doesn't mean I'm going to go buy one right now, right? I mean, it was a riot for the short ride that I got to take on it.
Yep. So I think there's some of that. You got to understand. We've talked about that before. Understand what you're really looking for in a bike. So
I guess you could just buy what's Ryan looking for that's on Amazon? Crazy cheap $1,400 bike that's going to be better than a used Versys 1000.
he's looking for that Chinese adventure bike. I don't even remember the manufacturer at this point, but I hope he does it, and I hope Ryan's listening.
No,
because I want to hear all about it. I want to follow this.
He's going to end up putting $7,000 in upgrades on it because it's not going to be what he wants. I'm just saying.
That's any bike. He do the same thing with the used Versys.
And it'll only get up to the $7,000 quality of features. He's not going to have anything better than what he would have bought just getting what he needed, not what he thought was going to be cheaper. Anyway, Ryan, I love you if you're listening.
I hope it happens. I'm happy to. We'll have a regular segment at that point to understand one, what have you done to the bike, because we know that it won't stay stock, and two, right, what is the experience thus far? We can have just a quick touch point every couple weeks that go over that, because I think it would be a very entertaining and informational to understand a real life experience. That being said, I've got we've talked about it before. A couple buddies with the CSC. A little electric bike. I can't remember the name of it. City Slicker or something like that.
Yeah.
And one of them has had no problems, loves the bike. The other one had weird charging issues that took, months and months to get resolved just due to the overseas support and parts and shipping and all of this. So,
and they probably don't have any more problems anymore because they haven't ridden them in a year and a half.
Well, I think they've ridden more than that, but after the bike, when you buy a bike that cheap, I think that's pretty common that you love it for 3 to 6 months, and then it just goes in the back of the garage, right? It's similar to, a lot of toys that people like us will buy that it's like, oh yeah, I need this tool for this one thing, and then I'll never really need it again, but it's this cool shiny tool I hang up in the corner. I show friends when they come over, look at this cool tool I got. Yeah, I don't really use it, but it's really cool. And I think that's kind of, it comes that way. When you only pay that much for a bike, and you're not a motorcycle person, you just wanted to have one to have that experience, then it's more of a trophy than it is a vehicle. But, he rode it the other day, I will say. One of my buddies, the one that had charging issues, obviously got it resolved, and rode it the other day. I ran into him, and he almost ran out of batteries on the way to work, so I actually had to pull it into the office so he could plug it in. Fortunately, it's, the size of a Grom, so it went through the door and wheeled right behind him, and he was able to charge it, plugging it into the wall. But, it still gets used, so good for them.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Oh, nonetheless, looks like we're coming up on our hour, and there's no reason. I think if we go any further, we're going to dive down another rabbit hole that takes another hour, so we'll come back on the next one with future topics and with our next iteration of this discussion. Likely a little bit more Pan America as more news comes out, but nonetheless, appreciate everybody trailing along with us, coming along our crazy thought processes, and I appreciate everybody waiting the week and a half it took to get this released. We'll start releasing here on Sundays, and we're talking about more of a seasonal cadence so that we can get more of this wrenching and other stuff that we're doing instead of spending so much time producing this. So we'll let you know as things progress and as things happen. Keep an eye on Facebook and Instagram. Those are going to be the places you'll see the most news and the most updates on the podcast. But otherwise, check out slackermoto.com, and we'll talk to you next week.
Until next time, ride on.